Hey everybody, it's Seth Jones, Editor-in-Chief of Golfdom Magazine, doing another Golfdom Zoom Views interview. Today I'm very excited to be joined by Dr. Dale Sanson. He is Senior Director of Formulation Development and Compliance Chemistry for nearby PBI-Gordon. Dr. Dale, thanks for taking the time and joining me today.
Oh, thank you, Seth. Always a pleasure to talk business and formulation chemistry with those in the field.
Okay, I love talking formulation chemistry. That's what we do at breakfast around here. Let's talk about SpeedZone. And I guess before we get into there is a news peg here with SpeedZone. But before we start talking about that, talk to me about how far back does it take? How far back does it go? How many versions of there was it? Can you give me some of the origin story of SpeedZone?
Yeah, SpeedZone came about. The concept was we were very fortunate to obtain the rights to a very unknown chemistry at the time, carfentrazone ethyl, and knew very little about it. Came into our hands to start doing some tank mixing and look at some combinations out in our field plots and our turf farm. And we were really excited whenever we started putting some combos together with the phenoxy acids and the quickness at which we were killing broadleaf herbicides. And at first we went back, rechecked our math. We thought there could be some issues with the level of the actives. And if you're familiar with carfentrazone ethyl, it goes out at a very, very low rate per acre. We confirmed those rates that they were correct. We knew we were onto something with speed, but we thought if we've got such a good compound here, we've got to build the proper house or formulation for that to go into that would marry a unique combination of co-formulants to even speed it up even faster. That started back about 95, 96. We learned and burnt up a lot of weeds or a lot of turf plots to get the right turf safety. There was an excess of 300 formulations that we finally came to the one that we selected. We didn't know how well it was going to be received in the market. The first year that we introduced it, we had a budgetary number at which we were wanting to hit. And by year end on that particular season, it was 4 to 5x of what we had budgeted. So we knew we were onto something. The market was talking.
Okay, fantastic. And so can you give me an idea, like what year was it that you guys first started the production or got that chemistry?
95 was when we first got the rights to it. We spent several years tweaking the formula, going through optimizing the efficacy of it for weed spectrum, and making sure that we had the right co-formulants in there to make it safe for northern and southern turfs. And so it took probably 3 to 4 years of active research, and that's biology as well as chemistry, to finally get to that formulation, of which was introduced in the late 1990s.
And you said there's like 300 versions of it, and I imagine that there's, you're hopeful that you get the one just right, but I mean, how many times do you not get the one just right? I mean, is there a moment there where you get a panicky feeling that what if we don't get it just right?
That's how my job is every day, Seth. It's a panicky moment, you just hope, that everything, the plants align and that everything's okay. That's not always the case, but there were some issues early on as we got closer to the proposed launch date and where we wanted to submit that package to the EPA, that we had some data points come in that just weren't quite right. Come to find out, it was diseased turf at which it was causing some damage in the R&D plots. But we finally narrowed it down to about 3 to 4 formulations that could have been the SpeedZone. Ultimately, it came down to this one candidate that had great turf safety, good broadleaf spectra, had a nice low threshold for odor, The other thing, SpeedZone was developed as a professional product. The complaint that we were hearing over and over again from high-end country clubs is when I apply a herbicide, I'm getting complaints from my clientele about the odor. So part of the aspect and the product concept for SpeedZone was to develop something that was fast, efficacious, cost-effective, and as well as satisfying that odor requirement by some of our high-end country clubs.
Okay, great. And now there, like I mentioned earlier, we saw a press release recently that there's an EW version of SpeedZone now. Can you talk to me about the new version?
Yes, and there's always, you talked about, every day and wondering if you've got the one and the apprehension. Whenever you're dealing with something that's a legacy like SpeedZone, you want to be very careful that you don't disturb something that's already good in the market. But we began to recognize newer technologies, and this was about 15 years ago. I started seeing this technology come about to be able to make a stable emulsion in water. And the benefit to that would be that you're getting something that hopefully we don't get to that point, but there may be a point at which we have restrictions for volatility, drift, things of that sort. So we began developing this as a contingency in case we would ever have some issues with our current SpeedZone. So since that time, when we recognized that about 15 years ago, the technology had not quite caught up to our needs. We're at that point now. We finally got to that point about 7 years ago, doing quite a bit of stability, field work, and getting a prototype that we thought was acceptable. As was the case in the model in SpeedZone EC, we narrowed that down from a core of 50 candidates to about 3, and we would look at these repeatedly for 2 to 3 years to make sure that they were repeating the same thing over and over again in terms of our satisfaction with efficacy for broadleaf control and safe for turf. And finally came down to 2 candidates roughly, and as was done with SpeedZone, we picked what we thought was the candidate and the one that we're moving forward with to commercialize.
For SpeedZone, what is it that you have heard from your end user that excites you the most about it? Have you had any, I don't know how often you really get to interact with your end user customer, but or maybe it's secondhand, but is there anything that really stands out in your mind that makes you especially happy with the way SpeedZone's turned out?
The best analogy I can give you, Seth, is that, as a parent, you have children and then you raise them the right way and you hope that they go off on their own and they make you proud. I will say SpeedZone is one of those. It took a lot of work, a lot of effort, took a lot of effort up front, just like a child in the early days and getting it to where it needs to go. And then ultimately,
There's the awkward teenage years.
and it doesn't need you. Yeah, it doesn't need you as much. It has left the nest. It's doing great. What's really encouraging is whenever you happen to just at the golf show or some industry trade shows, you happen to be walking around and in a social type setting, you hear SpeedZone. It's like you tune into that, think, oh, I did that, and there's satisfaction there.
Everybody, this is Dr. Dale Sanson. He is the Senior Director of Formulation Development and Compliance Chemistry with PBI-Gordon. I'm Seth Jones. Thanks for watching us here. Thanks to Dr. Dale taking the time. Thanks for watching us here on Golfdom Zoom Views.